And welcome to the Authority of Love. I'm your host, Greg Williams, joined again on this Family Foundation Friday by our co-host, David Walls, Executive Director of the Family Foundation. David, thanks again for joining us, brother.
It's good to be with you.
Yeah, always is, isn't it?
It is.
I enjoy this. I look forward to this every week, and I hope that we are giving our listeners and people here in Central Kentucky something good to hold on to, or if they're listening out there on the podcast or a video farther than that. So we thank you for that. Before I get started, David, I got to shout out happy birthday. Yesterday was my middle child, my younger son's birthday, 27. I know I don't look like I should have. My wife really doesn't look like she should have a 27-year-old. You can make the case for me, but certainly not for her. And so for that, I'm very blessed. So I want to say happy birthday to Harrison Williams. Love you, buddy. Now, 4 days from today is Kentucky's primary election. Fill us in on what's going on right now, David.
Yeah. Early voting is underway, Greg. As we sit here right now, you can go out and vote in Kentucky's primary election. We certainly encourage folks to do. Look, I know here's the sad reality as it relates to voting. You know, these are general stats, but you know, they say for Christians, most time Christians in a general election, only about half of registered voters that are Christians get out and vote. Yeah. And in primary elections, it's a fraction of that.
Yeah.
But here's what I think a lot of sometimes folks that maybe don't engage or follow the political space is actively recognize. Primary elections are so important, particularly when we're talking. Look, we know there's a Republican and a Democrat primary going on. Yep. We know that there's a presidential race that's going on. It's already been essentially determined who the nominees of both parties are going to be on. Right. So there's not a lot of drama as it relates to the top of the ticket in the primary races. But for the important state legislative races, there's congressional races, obviously, but state house, state senate races. A lot of these contested races where you have two candidates, let's say in the Republican side, running against one another, will likely be determinative in terms of who's going to hold that office. Because the reality is, Greg, as you know, a lot of these districts, they're either a Republican-oriented district or a Democrat district. That doesn't mean that what happens in November, seats can flip and there can be close races, certainly. But so many times in some of these races, you won't even have, in some of these Democrat seats that are very strong Democratic, you won't even have a Republican running against them in November. Conversely, in some of these Republican seats, there's not a Democrat opponent. So the race will be determined on Tuesday.
Now it seems like we have a super-majority in both houses, but we already found out this last legislative session. Republicans do. We already found out that there's still a lot, and I'm going to lead to two things. There's a lot of things that were left undone. That were left undone this last session by a lot of so-called conservatives that got voted in. And that leads to the next thing. First of all, if you want to know more information about locations and where to go to govote.ky.gov. Govote.ky.gov. You can find your location and then follow through on that. Also be praying. You've got the Citizen. I'm going to hold it up here, David. You've got this, for those of us watching the video, those of you who are watching that, the newest Citizen is hot off the presses. You should be getting it in your mailbox in the next day or two or three, depending on where you are in the state. Right, David?
That's right. And folks can sign up to receive it at KentuckyFamily.org.
Right. So go to KentuckyFamily.org. If you don't get it, if you do, be looking for that. There's a lot of great information in it. But here's one of the things that I want to say that we were talking about, David. Then I'm going to pitch it back to you. You have an opportunity, even in the primaries, to check the records, right? And then also check the sources. When you get mailers in the mail and things like that, just because it says, we're going to use one here, Commonwealth Conservative Coalition, they're in the Commonwealth, probably not really a coalition, and they certainly aren't conservative. So David, speak a little bit more to that as we get into these primary elections.
Well, and first, let me make sure we plug. Folks can go to votekentucky.us to get a voter guide. We partner with iVoter Guide in this effort. They're the largest producer of Christian voter guides, and any of the contested primary races, you can get a voter guide that provides a lot of great information, revealing information.
Right.
If they've been in office before, how they voted, funding, notable campaign contributions that they've received, notable organizations that may be endorsing. You know, we don't endorse candidates, but you know, other organizations do.
And there's your sources sometimes,
both on the left and the right. And then, like you said, look, if you live, we're in the middle of a very contested set of races, particularly in the Republican primary and some of the state house races. You're seeing unprecedented amounts of money that are being spent. The so-called organization that you just mentioned is an organization that was just set up, and it's really being funded by the Jefferson County Teachers Union PAC. So just to be clear, that's not a conservative-leaning organization.
Pretty far.
But they and some others are funding that organization, and they're engaging in these Republican primary races. Why? Because they recognize that so many of these races and the general trajectory of the General Assembly is going to be determined by some of these Republican primary races, because exactly what you said, the Republicans have such a super majority in the legislature, they feel like they need to have a say in who's being elected in these races, so they're engaging in the primary. Now, who are they supporting in these races? You go through and look through the list, they're generally speaking supporting the candidates that are more moderate, some might even say liberal, certainly candidates that are opposed to educational freedom. You're seeing some overlap with some of the gambling interests, that they're supporting candidates that want to see expanded gambling. So voters need to know that, because Greg, as I like to say, and it's particularly true during primary season, if you're talking about in the Republican primary, everyone campaigns as a conservative. Everyone is your conservative voice.
Why is that?
And because, I mean, the electorate here in Kentucky, you know, in primary races, generally very conservative in certain areas. Generally speaking, pretty conservative. They care about you know, social conservative issues, the issue of life, defending life, defending religious freedom, promoting educational freedom, parental rights. Some of these foundational issues are front and center in a lot of voters' minds. And so they're trying to really sow confusion, I would say, in some of these races.
I'd agree with you.
And so check, as Greg said, you know, if you in one of these races, and one of them is right here.
Yes, it is. Kentucky, in Lexington, and Jefferson County.
And the media's been talking about this. You know, House District 45 here in portions of Fayette County and Jessamine County. You've got Republican incumbent Killian Timoney is running in the Republican primary to be reelected. You've got a challenger to him, Thomas Jefferson. There's been multiple news articles talking about the amount of money that's being spent in that race. And if you happen to live in that district, as someone on our Family Foundation team does, you've probably gotten a whole lot of mail over the last several weeks. And so it's important to understand who's funding, who's promoting the messages. And that's why I would encourage folks, one of the ways you can cut through the campaign fog of war, if that works, and say, who can I trust in this? Go to votekentucky.us, look up the race, see what the candidates have done. I mean, look, Representative Timoney has a very clear voting record. You can go see how he voted on some very important issues. You can go see, you know, his Thomas Jefferson, you know, filled out the questionnaire on the voter guide. You can look at that and make a little bit more of an informed decision when you go vote.
And David, I would say this. That's why I was saying, and you've reiterated it very well, check the records when you have them. And the record is not just voting. In this case, we have scorecards and votekentucky.us. Those things tell us. Then compare that to what they're saying in the ads. When you get a flyer, if you go back and say, this guy voted against gambling, but he's telling people because he thinks they want to hear that he's for it, or vice versa, or for abortion or life, those things, do a little bit of homework there. Don't just take their word for it on the ad. If there's a record or a scorecard, go back and look at that, because that's going to tell you a lot more, especially the record of
and
an
make
incumbent.
Sure, look, that is not to say don't, you know, there are organizations out there that engage politically that you can trust. You know, our friends at Kentucky Right to Life, they have a political arm where they do endorse or recommend different candidates. And that information
they get a lot of heat for that too.
They do. But you know, I would say if you care about the issue of life, that's a source that you can trust on some of these races.
And as you said, the Kentucky iVoter Guide. is very good, strong.
Right.
So,
and you know, who the endorsements or the recommendations that Kentucky Right to Life has made, that information is public information that's collected in the iVoter Guide, so you can see.
Right. So just what we're saying is pray, do your homework, and then find the people that match up to your values.
Absolutely.
Don't be deceived by the ads and those kind of things, because a lot of money goes down a wrong path.
Yeah.
And so we need to be careful of that. Give us a little update on what we're calling the Amendment 2, because we believe it's going to be that, right, David? What is that one?
Yeah, we've got and it'll be up on our website soon as well, Lord willing. But we've got a follow-up Kentucky citizen piece that Martin Cawthorn wrote for us. Now that the General Assembly has passed the proposed amendment, it's going to be on the ballot. A educational freedom amendment will be on the ballot November 5th, which is the general election, and voters will have an opportunity to have a say on whether they want to have more educational options for students and families in the Commonwealth. And most likely, there's 2 proposed amendments that'll be on the ballot. We're hearing that it's extremely likely that the school choice amendment will end up being Amendment 2 on the ballot. But that is still to be determined. But I've been told it's 99-something% likely.
So, and we'll make sure you get that information,
right?
As many other groups will. That would be yes on 2 if that's the case.
Yes.
Right? If that yes. Right. Well, and by the way, all research shows that it's good for the children, and it strengthens education across the board. So it's a good thing. I know we mentioned last week, David, Scouting America and their demise and things that are going on there with what they're doing. And the alternative to that, Trail Life, you've got something on that they've put out. Yeah,
we talked a little bit about this, and my son and I have loved being a part of Trail Life for the last year. But they put out a press release in response to the Boy Scouts dropping boy from their name.
Right.
And I just thought it was really good, because in that statement, whatever they're called now, the not Boy Scouts, Scouting America said that their number one job, they were pushing inclusivity, and their number one job was just to get kids in the program. And I thought Trail Life CEO Mark Hancock had a really good response. He said, our focus is different than the Scouts. Our number one job is not to get kids into the program. Our number one job is to grow godly men. And the reality is males and females are fundamentally different in many ways, physically, emotionally, in their relationships, and pretending otherwise in the name of progress, while it might be culturally acceptable, he said, it does both sexes a disservice. Boys and girls deserve unique programs created with their needs in mind. I thought that hit the nail on the head.
That is powerful. And right on. And matter of fact, I do a lot of marriage counseling and mentoring. You know that. There's a lot of differences.
There are.
They're very clear.
To the glory of God.
Amen. And by the way, he said there's a reason for that.
It's
for marriage.
Yep.
It's for the purpose of marriage. So that's a wonderful thing. Great thing. Also, if you ladies out there, if you're looking for an alternative, there's a group that actually started up in Louisville, Kentucky called Heritage Groups.
Yeah, great Christian.
And great group, just like Trail Life for boys and men. So you can find out more about a lot of these things at kentuckyfamily.org. If you want to donate, I'm sure you're open to that, right, David? Thank you for that.
We are in our spring support season.
Yeah, we are as well. loveandlordship.com. We thank you for that. All donations are tax deductible. And if it's not us, then keep praying until the Lord shows you where to give. So, David, thank you again for being with us. Great job. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day in the love and lordship of Christ. Now stay tuned for my good friend Greg Horn at 12:45. Hope is here. I'm Greg Williams with our co-host David Walls from the Family Foundation here on Family Foundation Friday, and you're listening to The Authority of Love. God bless.